kill. Come on, Grandma.
I've retired from the storage game, and I've just gone back to becoming a world-class slacker. And I know I'm good at that, man.
Every reality show has its breakout star, and Storage Wars had Barry Weiss. He showed up to storage auctions in a 1947 Cadillac and occasionally hired psychics to help him read a locker's energy before bidding. How does a man who spent 25 years selling wholesale fruits and vegetables become the most beloved character on cable television's biggest shows? And what made fans keep showing up for him long after he left? Join us as we dig into the full story of how Barry Weiss became the one Storage Wars star nobody could ever quite forget. The millionaire nobody knew about. Right from episode 1, Barry Weiss clearly stood out from the rest of the cast on Storage Wars. The difference was simple. Everyone else was actually trying to earn a living. Daryl Sheets needed solid lockers to stay afloat. Dave Hester was aggressively bidding to feed his consignment shop. Brandy and Jared were drowning in bills, a mortgage, and 2 kids. Barry, on the other hand, was sitting on $10 million from 25 years of selling wholesale fruit and veggies. He was already comfortably retired before the fame. The produce company was a family enterprise that his grandfather, Hy Weiss, had founded. Barry and his brother Joey built it into a substantial wholesale import-export operation, supplying fruits and vegetables to retailers across the United States. And by the time Barry walked away from it in the mid-2000s, both brothers had made themselves very comfortable. Celebrity net worth pins Barry at roughly $10 million, most of which was sitting comfortably in his bank account long before he ever popped open a dusty storage unit for the cameras. Barry told interviewers he had spent the years after retirement essentially just enjoying himself, traveling the world and buying things that caught his eye, which had been his real passion since he was 15 years old. He had been collecting antiques, vintage cars, and anything genuinely unusual since long before anyone had heard of him. The connection to Storage Wars came through Tom Beers, a reality television producer and old friend. Executive Tom Beers built the whole show around actual storage buyers. Getting Barry on board was a no-brainer. The guy knew his stuff, acted completely weird, and was rich enough to not care about making a profit. That combination made him instant television gold. Barry agreed to do it, but his deal behind the scenes was completely different from everyone else on set. Getting paid to show up on TV just to act like a weirdo and spend play money while everyone else was trying to pay off their truck loans is a flex. He was there because he found the whole exercise genuinely entertaining, and because, if he was lucky, a locker might contain something he actually wanted to keep. He admitted in interviews that he kept many of the items he won at auction rather than reselling them, which meant his profit margins on the show were frequently lower than his castmates, but his enjoyment levels were considerably higher. That attitude came through on screen immediately, and audiences liked it. So how did the guy who cared less about winning than everyone else somehow become the one who made Storage Wars the most fun to watch? Built for the spotlight. Storage Wars debuted on A&E in December 2010 and became one of the highest-rated cable shows in its time slot almost immediately. There were 4 original buyers. Dave Hester was the designated villain who ran the price up on lockers he did not even want. Daryl was the gambler who bet big on instinct. Brandy and Jared bickered their way through every auction. And then there was Barry, who showed up in a different extraordinary vehicle every week, made jokes that landed without seeming to try, and had such obvious genuine knowledge about what he was looking at that even his most outlandish moments came from a credible place. The cars became part of his identity almost instantly. Barry owned an estimated 30 vehicles at the peak of his collecting, and the auction arrivals became a running feature of the show. There was the 1947 Cadillac with the cowboy-stitched interior and the bullhorns bolted to the grille, worth somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000 and built by custom craftsman Frank DeRosa. There was the Beatnik Custom, a 1955 Ford rebuilt from a Lincoln chassis, a Chevy V8, and a Cadillac front end, topped with a bubble glass canopy and painted vivid blue, valued at over $150,000. There was a 1989 Batmobile replica, a DeLorean DMC-12, a James Bond Lotus Esprit submarine car, and a 1966 Shelby Mustang that he actually found inside a storage locker while filming the show, which is the kind of moment that justifies an entire television format. He also drove a Lincoln Zephyr with a flamethrower exhaust system. The Lincoln was, by any measure, the correct vehicle for a man returning from a near-fatal motorcycle accident to announce he was back. His car knowledge ran deep in a way that went beyond collecting. He appeared in Motorcycle Mania 3, a Discovery Channel documentary, years before Storage Wars existed, alongside his friend Jesse James, the motorcycle builder and television personality. Barry was Jesse James's godfather. Their connection came from a shared obsession with custom rides, built way before either of them became famous outside the gearhead community. Vintage rides, custom fabrication, and serious collector circles were Barry's actual life. Storage Wars just handed that private hobby a massive TV audience. His methods at auction were just as theatrical. Barry brought night vision goggles to peer into dark lockers. He hired a psychic to stand at his shoulder and read the energy of a unit before he committed to a bid. Barry once brought in Stuart Copeland, the drummer from The Police, just to appraise a drum kit found in a random locker. Copeland signed every piece right on the spot, instantly doubling its value. That was Barry's whole playbook. He leaned on a massive network of collectors, mechanics, and weird hobbyists to spot high-value items that other buyers walked right past while chasing quick cash. He knew antiques, military gear, classic cars, and rare collectibles inside and out. He could stand in a doorway, glance into a dark pile of junk, and identify things no one else even recognized. The weird antics and theatrics were great for TV, but underneath all that circus energy was real, unshakable expertise. But was Barry really that funny on his own? Or did having the most competitive group of buyers imaginable standing around him make his laid-back chaos even better? The secret behind Barry's appeal. One of the underappreciated things about Barry's presence on Storage Wars was how much he sharpened everyone else by contrast. Dave Hester's aggression landed differently when Barry was standing nearby looking mildly amused. Daryl's gambling instincts read as more tense precisely because Barry seemed so relaxed about everything. The show's competitive tension existed, and it was real, but Barry's consistent refusal to be particularly stressed about any of it gave the audience somewhere to breathe. He was also genuinely funny in a way that reality television rarely manages. The jokes were dry and observational, and occasionally self-deprecating, delivered without the desperate energy of someone performing for a camera. He had the confidence of a person who had already made his money and found his interests and genuinely did not require anyone's validation. And that quality is almost impossible to manufacture on screen. Viewers could feel the difference between someone being a character and someone just being themselves. Barry was very clearly just being himself, which made the whole thing feel real in a way that raised the entire show's credibility. Then came the total randomness of his strategy. Every other buyer was completely predictable. Dave bid just to win and screw people over. Daryl went strictly on gut feelings. Brandy and Jared were constantly running resale math in their heads. Barry, though? He might throw money at a storage unit because a tiny box in the back caught his eye, or because a psychic told him to, or maybe he just felt like it before even looking inside. That sheer chaos kept the show interesting when the rest of it got repetitive. The producers clearly got the message, too, because they handed him way more screen time than any normal auction show ever should have. The show's producers recognized what they had. A&E gave Barry his own fan following, and the network noticed that female viewers in particular had developed a devoted attachment to him that went well beyond the normal reality TV audience relationship. A fan club on Facebook accumulated proposals of marriage from viewers on what was reportedly a daily basis. Barry, having been married and divorced with 2 kids already, was not accepting any of them. Network executives quickly realized they were sitting on a gold mine. Female viewers were bizarrely obsessed with him, flooding his fan pages with daily marriage proposals that he politely ignored. But how long could a guy with $10 million in the bank keep playing in dirty storage lockers before getting bored? Walking away at his peak. Barry was a regular on Storage Wars from Season 1 through Season 4, and then in 2013 he left. The departure surprised viewers, but it followed its own internal logic. He explained the decision in a video interview in 2017, saying simply that he had had enough and wanted to leave while it was still good. He was not chasing the next deal or worrying about network negotiations. He liked the show, he had enjoyed himself, and he had decided he was done. That was the entire explanation. He also added, with characteristic understatement, that he was back to being a world-class slacker, which, given everything he had done before the show, during it, and after it, seemed like a characteristically cheerful way of describing a man who had simply decided to spend his time exactly as he wanted to. A&E, understanding that walking away from Barry Weiss completely was not a viable option, developed 2 spin-offs. Buried Treasure launched in March 2014 and followed him across the United States searching for rare collectibles and unusual items with a group of friends in tow. The show ran for 8 episodes and had the same energy as his Storage Wars appearances, Barry being Barry in different locations, which was charming, but ultimately too similar to what viewers already associated him with in a different context. Storage Wars, Barry Strikes Back came the following year, and had Barry and his friend Kenny Crossley sitting down to watch and commentate on old Storage Wars episodes. It ran for 10 episodes before being canceled, and reviews were not generous. The general feeling was that the show existed to give audiences more of Barry, rather than to tell a story that needed telling, which is a fair criticism. The spin-off's failure had nothing to do with Barry's appeal, and everything to do with what actually made him work on Storage Wars. The specific combination of his personality with genuine competition and a cast of characters he could bounce off. Removed from that dynamic, the format had less to hang on to. So what happened when a man known for his obsession with unusual cars and motorcycles suddenly found himself fighting to recover from a crash that nearly killed him? The accident that changed everything. For years after leaving Storage Wars, Barry remained a recognizable figure in the world of vintage collecting and classic vehicles. He appeared in the 2019 documentary Beverly Hills Garage, The Bruce Meyer Project, which covered the collection of one of California's most significant car collectors, and it was a natural fit for someone whose knowledge of vintage automobiles was genuinely deep. Then, in April 2019, Barry was involved in a serious motorcycle accident in the Los Feliz area of Los Angeles. He and a friend were riding when a car pulled out of a parking space without looking, and both bikes went into it. Barry's friend posted from the scene that same day. "Not a good day at the office. A serious crash today while out riding with a friend. I got lucky, with only a broken knee, elbow, and wrist. My friend is much worse and has serious chest and leg trauma. Please send your prayers to Barry. Barry was placed in the ICU at an LA hospital and spent 2 months there, undergoing multiple surgeries on his back and femur. There were reports during his recovery of a stroke, though these were never formally confirmed in detail. The scale of the recovery kept him away from television for nearly 2 years. He was not the kind of person who used social media to update the public on his condition, which meant fans were largely following fragments of information passed through friends and castmates. When Storage Wars returned for season 14 in 2021, Barry came back with it, and his arrival was as Barry as it was possible to be. He pulled up to the auction in the Lincoln Zephyr with the flamethrower exhaust, rolled down the window, and asked the assembled cast whether they had missed him. The answer from the fans watching was clearly yes. He returned for season 15 in 2023, then was absent from season 16, which premiered in 2025. Neither Barry nor A&E explained, and Barry being absent from social media meant there was no direct update from him. Given everything he had been through physically since 2019, the absence felt more like a natural winding down than a dramatic exit, but fans noticed it immediately. And the comment sections on Storage Wars clips filled with people asking where he was. That particular pattern, the audience still looking for him even on a show he had not been a main cast member of for over a decade, says something about the kind of impression he left. So what was it about Barry that made viewers keep looking for him long after almost anyone else would have simply become another former cast member? The one fans never forgot. The honest answer to why Barry Weiss became the one Storage Wars star fans never forgot is that he was the only person on the show who was clearly doing it for reasons that had nothing to do with television. The other buyers were professionals whose livelihoods were tied to their performance at auction. Their stakes were real, and their stress was real, and that was compelling to watch. But Barry was a wealthy retiree who had been collecting things his entire life and happened to be invited onto a show that let him do what he already did, in front of cameras, with more interesting vehicles than usual. His freedom from necessity was visible in every scene he appeared in, and it made him oddly relaxing to watch in a show built around competitive stress. He was also the show's institutional knowledge in a way that nobody really talked about, but that anyone paying attention could see. His expertise ranged from Civil War memorabilia, to classic cars, to vintage motorcycles, to high-end antique furniture. And that range meant he could identify things in a locker that the other buyers either overlooked or actively avoided, because they did not know what they were looking at. Several of his best finds on the show were items that had been passed over precisely because the competition did not recognize their value. Barry recognized them, bought them for almost nothing, and kept them. The fact that keeping them rather than selling them was an option for him at all was the entire difference between his relationship to the show and everyone else's. Part of what sealed his legacy was the specific way fans remember him, and the consistency of those memories across people who watched the show at completely different points in its run. Ask anyone who watched Storage Wars which moments stay with them, and Barry's arrivals come up immediately. The cars, the costumes, the psychic, the night vision goggles, and Copeland signing the drum kit at the auction. They are memories of a man who genuinely collected rare things, knew people everywhere, and genuinely did not mind looking ridiculous if the situation called for it. That combination of knowledge, wealth, personality, and complete indifference to anyone's opinion of his methods is not something a producer can cast for. It either exists or it does not, and in Barry's case, it very clearly existed. He has 2 adult children, a son named Jack, and a daughter named Julie, and is now a grandfather. He has largely retreated from public life since his season 15 appearance in 2023, consistent with someone in his early 70s who has already had one serious health scare and appears to have made peace with staying out of storage auctions for the time being. He remains Jesse James's godfather, a relationship that began through their shared obsession with motorcycles and extended into genuine friendship long before either of them was particularly famous. He is not on social media in any meaningful way. He travels when he wants to, collects when something catches his eye, and does not appear to miss the cameras. Barry Weiss was on Storage Wars for 4 seasons out of 17. He appeared in fewer episodes than most of his castmates, ran 2 spin-offs that did not quite land, and walked away from the whole thing on his own schedule, rather than anyone else's. Do you think Storage Wars was ever as entertaining without Barry in it? And what was the single moment from his time on the show that you remember most clearly? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.